in spiritual terms. We're talking about our false identification with our bodies, with our material bodies. So we'll read a little bit from Srimad Bhagavatam, and then we'll discuss. I'm hoping you all are ready to talk tonight, because I only have about 10 or 15 minutes things to say. So I'm hoping I'll hear from you also. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
So, we'll read from Srimad Bhagavatam. There's a few verses I'd like to read just to give us some context, but we'll just start with this one. I'll just recite the Sanskrit and then we'll read the translation and purport. Shanubande cha dehesmin akurvana sad agraham jnanena drishta tattvena prakrite purushasya cha. The translation of this verse: one's seeing power should be increased through knowledge of spirit and matter, and one should not unnecessarily identify himself with the body, and thus become attracted by bodily relationships. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. The conditioned souls are eager to identify with the body and consider that the body is myself, and that anything in relationship with the body or possessions of the body is mine. In Sanskrit, this is called aham mamata, and it is the root cause of all conditional life. A person should see things as the combination of matter and spirit. He should distinguish between the nature of matter and the nature of spirit, and his real identification should be with spirit, not with matter. By this knowledge, one should avoid false bodily concept of life. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Tadati Swapadantikam. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Deenabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute. Tapta Kanchana Gourangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye. Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So this concept that we're talking about and what is talked about in this verse is not a new concept. I think most of us are familiar with it, right? That we are not our material bodies. This is the first lesson in spiritual life. You know how you have the ABCs when you go to school? So the ABC of spiritual life is first to understand that you are not the body. Even in Bhagavad Gita, you'll see Krishna is instructing Arjuna before the battle, and the first lesson there is that you are not the body. So this is the first thing we have to learn. So the reason I want to talk about it is because I thought we need to examine this a bit more closely ourselves. It is the very basic lesson in spiritual life, to understand that we are not these material bodies and everything that comes with it. But we see that even though it's the first lesson, it is not an easy thing to overcome. It is definitely not an easy thing. That because we've gone on to the second lesson or the third lesson, that we've passed this first lesson. So in this verse, they're saying that our seeing power should be increased through knowledge of spirit and matter, and we shouldn't unnecessarily identify ourselves with our bodies. So, and in the purport, Sri Prabhupada talks about the concept of I and mine, my body, and everything related to the body being mine. So, can anyone think of, at least in your own personal life, or even in the broader context of society, some of the impacts of this accepting oneself as one's body? How has it impacted, especially negatively? What are the impacts of thinking that we are our bodies? What's the consequence of it? If there's no negative consequence, there's no need to give up the idea, right? So we're trying to give up the idea there is some negative consequence for it. So what is the problem with thinking that we are our bodies? Can anyone think? Any problems?
Death.
What's the problem with death? So what's the problem?
Misery, sadness.
So because of death, so we feel sad when there's death,
yes,
because we attach to the bodies.
Yes.
Okay, important point which Paramatma Prabhu is raising. If we think we are the body does die at some point. And if we think we are the bodies, we naturally become attached to the bodies. So then if we die, if the body dies in a sense, if the body dies, we feel some misery. We don't like the idea of death if we think that we are the bodies, because the body is going to die, and that's our identity, so we're going to stop existing. So that's an important consideration. Yes, personally. So that's an impact. Fear of death. Fear of death is an important impact, a consequence of thinking that you're the body. Yes, anything else? Any more practical things you see in day-to-day life of what goes on from seeing that we're the body, believing that we are our bodies? True?
Well, if anybody thinks they are the body, then they'll automatically fear death.
Yes.
Because they want the body to carry on and on.
Exactly. So we want to extend our lives. We try to procrastinate old age. We try to live, try to be healthy. But the inevitable thing, as we know from the scriptures, birth, old age, disease, and death are there for all of us. But we try to fight all that. But guess what we're going to lose? Because our bodies will die. There's no record in history of anyone not dying. So it's certain. Yes. What else? Practically.
Social inequality.
Social inequality. What we expand on it a little so we know what you're referring to.
I wanted to hear you, but I'll just point out the certain stratifications on the grounds of race, gender, sexuality, etc.
Right.
Economic status.
So, what Prabhu is describing is all the discriminations, all the ways society is divided based on various bodily concepts, race, gender, sexual orientation, etc. There's many ways, economic status, educational qualifications, there could be various ways that people look at each other in society based on those designations. And in South Africa, we got apartheid, right? That's That's a ramification of thinking we are the bodies. If we didn't understand that we were the body, if we thought we were not the bodies, the concept of apartheid holds no water. But because someone feels that people are their bodies, based on this basis of their bodies, you categorize them and you think of them in a certain way, right? Apartheid, gender discrimination, every kind of discrimination we get in the world is typically got its root in identifying with the bodies. Right. So let's see where we are. Many of you are practicing Krishna consciousness. We know this lesson about not being the bodies. So let's see where we are on this platform. Now I know I experienced this, so I can share something that I felt. So now when we are in South Africa, all the South Africans are here. It's nothing special. I don't get excited. Hey, we South Africans, great. But when I'm traveling overseas and I meet a South African, it's an exciting thing, right? Because I think I am South African. Then I meet another South African there, and wow, you South African, where are you from? Ha ha ha, like, right? Very exciting because we suddenly two South Africans and we're out of South Africa. So we suddenly see, because we both identify as South Africans. And at any level you can do it. If we had interstellar or interplanetary travel, if we saw someone from Earth in another planet, we'd get equally excited, right? Or even in our communities, we saw someone from our own school, someone from our own football club, someone from our own Namahata group or something. So generally where we have an identification with a thing, which is ultimately related to our bodies, then we have a kind of affinity towards that. But at the same time, when you have that kind of affinity, it means you have some kind of exclusion of the one who's not in your group, right? So I like the people in my group, but it means I see the others who are not in my group differently. Whatever group I identify with, it could be any group. So, and this grouping is generally from our body or from an extension of our bodies. Like, so my body, but my identity comes from my body and things that I do. Like to say I belong to a specific club, tennis club or something. Then, by extension, I identify myself as a member of the tennis club. So we have many identifications like that. And our nature as living beings is to kind of take on those identifications. We kind of naturally identify with different things. Even if we're in a political movement, even if we're in a religious movement, we naturally take on the identity. You know, we kind of have an identification with that and a kind of perspective of the world based on me and the others who are not in that group. And those groups are my family, my community, my this, that, and it can go infinitely. So we see this bodily identification or the extension of bodily identification is not something you can easily just say I'm out of, you know? Just, oh yes, we are not the body, we understand we are the spirit soul, so it's gone. No, it is something that requires a whole perspective change in our consciousness, in how we see ourselves, how we see the world, how we see everything in society, everyone, everything. So, spiritual life naturally brings about that change. But we'll talk about that a bit later, about what that change is. So, now if we want to consider beyond understanding the fact that we are just not the body, and we are, if we are not the body, what are we? Anybody?
So,
Spirit, soul. So this is described in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna describes that how we, all of us, are eternal spiritual souls, spiritual beings, spirit souls. And that is our real nature, spiritual, and we are souls, so we are not the body. So what I'll do is I'll just read another verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, which describes a little bit more of exactly what we are talking about. This verse is from Srimad Bhagavatam 11th canto, 22nd chapter, text 40. I'll just read the translation and purport. O most charitable Uddhava, what is called birth is simply a person's total identification with a new body. One accepts the new body just as one completely accepts the experience of a dream or a fantasy as reality. The purport, Srila Prabhupada says, identification with one's material body surpasses the mere affection and attachment one feels for the bodies of relatives or friends. So we already discussed, when we identify with our bodies, we feel affection to our bodies and to our extensions of the body, relatives, friends, etc. But Prabhupada is saying here, by identifying with the body, it goes even beyond that. The word sarva bhavena here shows that one totally accepts the material body to be oneself, just as one completely accepts the experience of a dream as real. Mere imagination without practical action is called daydream, right? So when you daydream, you kind of imagine, your mind goes somewhere, but no action happens. That's daydream. That's what Prabhupada is saying. The mental concoction that occurs in a sleeping state is called a dream. Right? In our sleeping state, we concoct various things in our mind, and that's our dream. So Prabhupada is mentioning there's a daydream and there's a dream. Two kinds. Our identification with our own body and our blind acceptance of bodily relationships as permanent constitute a prolonged form of dreaming or fantasy, in which one imagines himself to be separate from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The term birth, therefore, does not refer to the generation of a new entity, but to the blind acceptance by the spirit soul of a new body. So Prabhupada's point here is that in this verse they're talking about how the experience of accepting our body as ourselves is a dream or a fantasy. We accept that as reality. So beyond the dream and a daydream, you have a prolonged fantasy, and this is what we are doing. We're having prolonged fantasy, and we're experiencing that we are the bodies. That's what Prabhupada is saying. And that's what this point of Bhagavatam is referring to us. And now when we have this fantasy, we naturally, as we said, get attached to certain things. When I am attached to something, whether it's my body, my friends, my family, my society, my community, then I'm affected by what they are affected. So if someone insults my friend, I get angry, right? Also, because he's my friend and I relate to him. My father, my loved ones, if someone hurts them, I get involved. And what do I want to do? I want to respond. Similarly, in the Russia-Ukraine war, if a Ukrainian sees a Russian there, he wants to kill him. A Russian sees a Ukrainian, they want to kill. Not that they hate each other. They don't even know each other. They don't know. If they met somewhere else, in another place, they could have been just, have a friendly chat. Or they could be friends. But now, because of this war situation, they identify with their countries and they will kill and they will die for that purpose. And it's mainly based on bodily identification, the land of my birth, everything like that. So we see all our miseries and suffering in this world is rooted in this one problem. So it's a core problem, identification with our body. It's a core problem. It's not something small. Although it's the first lesson in spiritual life, by us understanding this theoretically at least, and then trying to apply this in our lives, and purifying our consciousness so that we see like this, we can become free from this misery. But you see, it's not an easy thing as we are talking about it now. It is not the simplest thing to just decide, I am not the body, and this is the answer, this is what I'm going to do. You can try and remember. I remember trying to tell myself that I'm not the body for many times, but you forget after a while, you just act. Right. So, any comments on this? Any thoughts? Any disagreements? Everyone agrees. So we're all on the same page, right? No. Okay, so now, what do we do about it? Right? What do we do about this? Because this identification of the body is causing all our problems, essentially, and all the problems of the world also. At least, if you extend by extension, you can see it's a root cause. Maybe, if there's an earthquake and people die, you may not say that's because of the body. But the fact that you feel misery when people die, or you die, is because of your attachment to the body. Because if we understood the body's real position, there won't be a reason to fear death, or for death to be a problem either. Not that we want to kill everyone, but it's just that it's not a big deal one way or the other. We are eternal spirit souls. So it's a transition. But it's not the purpose of life, and it's not the focus of everything we do. So another point that just comes to mind, if we examine all the activities we do from the time we woke up this morning, or let's take yesterday, from the time we woke up yesterday morning till the time we went to bed last night, everything we did. Of course, while we are sleeping, we can't control too much what goes on in our minds, but let's just talk about what we did since we woke up till the time we went to bed. How many of those activities were centered around our bodies, and how many were centered around taking care of our soul, our spiritual beings? What did we do? And what was our consciousness while doing it? So we ate, we bathed, we most probably went to work or school or something, and we traveled, and we came back, and then I don't know what we did in the evening. We cooked or cleaned or did homework with the children, whatever, education. How much of that was centered around what is for my body, what is good for my body? Typically, the people in this world, what are they worried about? Progressing materially, getting more things, living more comfortably, getting more wealth. And generally, all these things are achieved by getting more money. In a capitalistic kind of society, you want more money so you can get all these other things that make your life nicer. And those things that make your life nicer are things that make you more comfortable with your body especially, right? Because being part of identifying with the body, we want to give our senses pleasure, right? So we try to have pleasurable experiences through our senses. So we gratify our senses. We will have to go do exciting things, experience exciting things, watch exciting things, hear nice things. So money gives us those things. So we chase after money. Yes,
Prabhuji, I think this concept is not always true. For example, say Professor Einstein, if he did not discover his discoveries, the society was standstill. But he did not do it for money. See, this concept is okay, but not always true in all spheres.
true.
So some people are there who are working without any benefit for the society.
Yes,
And they are working 24 hours.
yes,
You do not know them. Understand? So in one sphere, concept is correct.
yes,
Okay. And second thing, if you don't have our body, how can soul work?
exactly.
We are doing puja, we are doing meditations, and for that we need a body.
Exactly.
So soul without body, no work. So body with soul, we have to discuss something, but including body and soul.
Yes. We're coming to that point next. We're definitely coming to that next, what you're talking about. But even Professor Einstein, so there's working for gross sense pleasure, which can be achieved through money and gratifying of senses. There's also working for subtle material sense pleasure, material pleasure. So even solving the so-called problems of life, it's not that society progresses by those discoveries. For example, the discoveries help you get what? They help you advance materially, right? They make society more sophisticated. But that will be another topic we have to talk about separately. We won't be able to discuss it fully right now. But there is definitely, it is still a problem what those discoveries do. But it'll be hard to explain right now. But essentially, everyone is working for what they think is the best. Not always for money, like you say, but everyone is working for what they think is the best thing. But ultimately, what the things are that we are getting are not the things that are removing this bodily identification. That is the point. So anything that enhances or entrenches the bodily identification doesn't solve any problem. Because we just discussed how the root cause of our problem is the bodily identification. So anything that is adding to it, whether it's Einstein's discoveries or any scientist's discoveries, they are generally used to entrench the identification of the body. That's the problem. So therefore, it is not beneficial for us. So now let's talk about the next point. Soul without body in this platform is very difficult. We can't do anything. So how should we be using the body? That's the next point. So let's talk about that. And let's go to Srimad Bhagavatam for that. I'm sure we have a verse about that topic that I'd like to talk about. So, this verse in Srimad Bhagavatam 11:2-33 says, Sri Kavi said, I consider that one whose intelligence is constantly disturbed by his falsely identifying himself with the temporary material world can achieve real freedom from fear only by worshipping the lotus feet of the infallible Supreme Lord. In such devotional service, all fear ceases entirely. So in this verse, we get a clue that in order to break free from this false bodily identification, just telling yourself that you're the soul is not enough, that the only way is by worshipping the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So now, it may not make sense why worshipping the feet of the Lord breaks the identity of the body. Right? It may be a bit of a leap to go to that point. So, I just want to read another verse which talks about that. Well, actually, it's a purport. It is not in the verse. Let me just see if I can find that purport. Okay. So false ego, Prabhupada is saying, this is a purport to Bhagavad Gita, chapter 13, text 8-12. Prabhupada is saying, false ego means accepting the body as oneself. When one understands he is not the body and the spirit soul, he comes to his real ego. Ego is there. False ego is condemned, but not real ego. So the point here is that identifying ourselves with the body is our false ego, false identification. It's not a true identification. But it doesn't mean there is no ego. There is also real ego. And that's what Prabhupada is alluding to here. It is said, Aham Brahmasmi, I am Brahman, I am spirit. This is I am. The sense of self also exists in the liberated stage of self-realization. So what we are saying is that even when we break free from the bodily concept of life, the ego becomes, it's not that there's no ego, but we get the real ego. And the real ego is that we are spiritual beings. We are spiritual beings. There are some philosophers who say that we should give up our ego, but we cannot give up our ego because ego means identity. We ought, of course, to give up the false identity with the material body. So, the most important thing is to now transform our false identification into a true identification. So, in order to do that, there is the process that we follow of spiritual life is meant to help us develop the true ego. So what is our real identity? We are spirit souls, but you'll notice we have the tendency to identify with various things. So as spirit souls, what's our real position? What's our actual position as spirit souls? Who are we related with? Should I say? So as spirit souls, we are spiritual beings, and our position is that we are related with the Supreme Spirit, with the Supreme Lord. So our real nature is that we are connected with the Supreme Lord and that we are His servants. We are part and parcel of Him. Now when we understand that relationship, then we automatically give up the other relationships. So like I was saying, by me just telling myself I am spirit soul, it is very hard to get the full understanding that we are spirit souls. So what we do is we take to a practice of spiritual life. We take to a practice of spiritual life. And what does this practice do? Just like when you join a tennis club or any sport that you are really into, what happens to the people who join a tennis club? They get really good at tennis. They know all the intricacies of it. They play, they talk among their friends about tennis, and they live and identify with that tennis club, right? And then they learn from one another all the different challenges and how to overcome different things, and they compete with other clubs, and they do that, and they spend their time in it. So similarly, because we as living beings, conditioned living beings, our tendency is to identify with various things that we associate with. The process that we follow is to now associate with the Supreme Lord and with spiritually minded persons. So what we do is we associate with the Lord by chanting His holy names. We engage in service to the Lord. We serve the Lord. We do things to now re-establish our original identity. So if we spend time engaging in ourselves, our body, mind, and senses in the service of the Lord, then we start to identify ourselves as servants of the Lord. It's a gradual process. Because we're identifying ourselves with so many other things, it takes a while for us to identify ourselves with the service of the Lord. So we just engage ourselves, we steep ourselves, we immerse ourselves in serving the Lord and serving His mission, associating with Him, associating with persons who are associated with Him. By doing that, we easily can break our false identity, false identification. So it's very difficult to break our identification with this world because we are immersed in it. But when we are immersed in it for a different purpose, with a different consciousness, and we are immersed with the idea that we are serving the Lord, then that identification builds, and this identification is taken away. So Srila Prabhupada gives a nice example that when a person kills, if somebody murders someone in South Africa, or in any country, should we say, then you will generally be punished by the government because it's an illegal act and they'll sentence you to prison or sentence you to death. But when that same person kills on the battlefield because he's sanctioned by the government doesn't take that action. Because on one, he's killing on the order of the government, in the other one, he's killing of his own accord. So although he's doing the same activity, the government's reaction is different. So similarly, we are living within this world with our bodies. We have to do certain things with our bodies. We have to feed our bodies. We have to clothe our bodies. We have to look after our bodies so we can act, as Prabhu was saying, within this world. But the consciousness of that acting must be first understand that we are spirit souls related to the Supreme Lord. And that is our actual identity. So when we are acting with this body, we use this body to fulfill that purpose. So even though we are feeding the body, because to live we have to feed, then what we do, we feed the body Krishna Prasad. When we have to talk, we talk about Krishna. When we have to sing, we sing about Krishna. When we have to discuss, we discuss about Krishna. So that's how we use this body within this world and we engage it in Krishna's service. And we build the identity. We uncover our true identity. It's not really building a new identity. That's our original identity. We want to go back to our original position because our current identity is covered with these false identities we've layered onto ourselves. So that is the main problem. And everything we do, if we engage ourselves in relation to the Lord to build this identity, and we do it with that consciousness of building that identity, then the body can be used properly in this world. Then our body is used properly. So whatever activities we are going to do, we have to do it for uncovering our identity. We have to relate it to that goal. And once we relate it to that goal, then it's great. And then it helps us achieve our ultimate perfection. Just like a Comrades marathon runner. Comrades is coming up sometime, right? Soon. Everything he's doing is for Comrades now. He's eating, he's exercising, he's preparing. He's doing that. He's living his life. He's still doing something, but he's very focused on that and preparing his body for that. So he's doing many things, just like you and I do. But he's got a very specific focus on how to prepare himself for that marathon and not do anything else. So similarly, our focus is not for a specific event, but it's for uncovering this consciousness of how we can break free from this bodily identification and now focus on Krishna. So therefore, we engage ourselves in Krishna's service. And we engage our minds of thinking ourselves that this is how I'm serving Krishna. This is what I'm doing it for. And that's how we re-attain our original identity. Of course, it's not a very simple process. It's a long process. And according to how we apply ourselves to it, it'll be either a faster or slower process. And according to how much mercy we get, then it can come very quickly. So there are those mercy factors here. So that is the That is the easy way.
You have it.
Sorry?
You have it. Mercy.
I was given some, but I think it slipped through my fingers. so I'm going to have to hold on more tightly, future. We all got the mercy. Because what we're hearing in Srimad Bhagavatam, what we're hearing in Bhagavad Gita, that is the mercy. Mercy is not just necessarily some electric shock. Maybe it'll come like that, I don't know. But the mercy is that this knowledge is given to us, that we have the opportunity to take advantage of this knowledge and the process. That is the real mercy. It's right on our doorstep, it's banging on our door. Do this. And it's an easy process. Lord Chaitanya gave us a very easy process. Chant Hare Krishna and you get everything. How simple things are. How simple things are made. That's unlimited mercy has come to us. And now we just have to take it. There's nothing else we really have to do. So we've got a lot of mercy. But still, we have to apply ourselves also. We should still try to apply ourselves consciously. Not that even without applying ourselves, we could get the result. That's true. You can always get an honorary degree in a university. Many people may get an honorary degree, but not everyone gets it. Most people have to enroll and study and pass exams. So while we may be entitled to an honorary degree, we will still act as if we're going to write exams and go through the 3 years of study or 4 years of study. So that is the sum and substance of what we are trying to do. We are practicing while we're expecting the mercy also. And while we are practicing, we are trying to attract mercy also. That's what we are doing. We're trying to get mercy so that the Lord will see us. Okay.
So I probably usually leaves at 7:30. He has to go to another temple.
Oh, okay.
Please.
Wonderful.
So I apologize for that. Is there any question, Maharaj?
So, are there any questions? Okay.
And also, Prabhu, welcome to Prabhu. What's your name, Prabhu? Sorry? Siabonga.
Siabonga.
He's from Bhakti Yoga Society.
Oh, wonderful.
Prabhu, was the class okay? Any questions? Any live questions you have?
Do you have any
Would you
questions?
like to ask a live question?
My question is, how can we practice how not to identify with the body?
How can we practice not to identify with the body? So that's a more difficult practice because it's kind of negating what you're associating with. Because the way the world is working, it kind of naturally lends itself to us identifying with the body and its extensions. So therefore, what we do is, instead of stopping identifying with the body, we start identifying with something else. That's the method we use. So that's a nice trick to our minds and bodies and our consciousness to kind of undo the bodily identification. So we identify with something else. For example, you must have had a girlfriend at some point, I assume, or boyfriend, whatever. But you must have had some relationship, right? So before you met that person, your life was going in whatever direction it was going. You focused on whatever you focused. When you got into that relationship, especially the early days of the relationship, right, you were very focused on that person. This identification, your rest of your life kind of got forgotten. You know, they were happening in automatic mode, but your consciousness was focused in that relationship. So you didn't have to artificially give up all the other things. You kind of just got attracted somewhere else, and your focus went there. So that's the method we use. We're trying to attract ourselves somewhere else that's not identifying with the body and identifying with the Supreme, and we get our real identity back, and then we naturally don't see ourselves as the body. It's not that we're trying to stop seeing ourselves as the body. So we try to see ourselves as who we actually are, the servant of the Lord. So then naturally there's no room for bodily identification in that identification. So that's what our practice is all about, trying to build that identification. So that's our method. Is it clear? Okay. Yes, without the body, it's the first question. How can the soul work? For example, the body is needed for japa and good work, etc. Yes, definitely. The body is needed for us. The body is a unique opportunity, actually, that we have these bodies, especially the human body, because the human body has a developed intelligence. You can ask questions. The body is a very unique opportunity for us to return to our original identity. Because we are conditioned souls, when we get this bodily, especially on this platform, it's a very unique opportunity to uncover it. But the problem is when we don't use the body for that, and we get further entangled in bodily identification, it's not helpful. So the body is very important for us to help us re-establish our identity, and we chant with the body, we use the body for all kinds of spiritual activity. Question 2. Why should one always stand up for arati? Generally, we stand up for arati because it's a sign of respect. The arati that's being performed is worship of the Lord. So when the Lord is worshipped, as a sign of respect, we're standing up. But it's not like a rule that if someone is sitting down, it's the end of the world. Anything. Like when we're having class and the arati starts, we carry on sitting down. There are higher things, more important things to worry about, like listening to the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, chanting Hare Krishna. But yes, if the opportunity is there and the setup, then we stand out of respect. The Lord is being worshipped, we stand and observe that respectfully, not just lounging around with whatever else we're doing. So, it's a sign of respect. Those are the only 2 questions. Is there anything else from anyone?
I'd like to say something.
Sure.
I don't know which book it was, but I was reading where Prabhupada said there are different bodies, different planets. Right? So like here now, whatever we read, the person who's writing, who doesn't know the Vedas, he is writing according to his mind, his intellect, which is still at the end of the day all material. And most of us are material. Okay, we're coming here now, we know why we're coming here, we want to get out of this material body. So what happens is now, when you material, the writer is materialistic, so you can get excited. Something he says will trigger you, you think like, hey. But at the end of the day, it's only the right materialistic writer and you materialistic person. Like, when they landed on the moon, they came back, they reckoned they didn't see anything, there's no life. But Prabhupada reckoned there is life. It's just that you can't see to this body and this eye. And whatever we got in this world, we can't see to that. We don't have the instruments. You need special instruments. And we know that comes all out of deep spiritual.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
We read a lot of things, you get misled.
That's true. By reading, you're associating.
Yes.
By associating, you're influenced. And if someone gives you the wrong influence, it further entrenches our identity with the material world. So essentially, it takes us backwards.
Yes.
And by associating with someone spiritual or something spiritual, it takes us forward in undoing the identity. So it's a very simple thing. And that's why we try to minimize our association with those types of things, and we try to maximize our association with spiritual things, because that's how we can uncover our original identities.
Yes, but association is so important.
Yeah.
Because you can go backwards.
Yeah. Like if there wasn't this Namahata today, we may not have been reading or hearing from scripture. And I might not have been speaking about it either. So this gives us the opportunity for all of us, for me to speak, for you all to hear, question and have discussion and chant. That opportunity is given here. So by engaging ourselves in this, we got an opportunity. Otherwise we may have been materially engrossed in something else, which wouldn't have helped us as much. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Any more questions from anybody? Ashwina Mataji, are you okay? Any questions from you? You okay? Manji, for you? Prabhu, I just got one question.
Sure.
Probably you're the temple president. You just tell us, maybe you didn't know you're the temple president. We're just reminding you. You know, this bodily conception.
The concepts, yeah, the identifications.
But they identified you, and so you just tell us, what sort of services you're talking about, engaging in service. Maybe some of the newcomers, they like to do some service at the temple. How do they engage? What sort of services are available? Or what sort of opportunities there are?
Okay, wonderful. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
There's many opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, there's so many opportunities.
Mm-hmm.
There's a team called Service Engagement formed. A group of devotees who help other devotees engage in service.
Mm-hmm.
right? In case they can't find it, because there's so many.
Okay.
And Nashvin, who's sitting at the back there,
Okay.
Nashvin with the striped T-shirt,
Yes.
golf shirt, he's part of that team. So
Okay.
I'm sure he can help you engage. But there's many kinds of service. Remember, we talked about uncovering our identity. If we don't engage our bodies and minds in serving the Lord, if we don't engage in actual physical practical service, and all our activities are about the body, it won't be helpful to us. So therefore there's opportunity for us to serve, and we must grab it, because without that service, our nature won't be changed. So there's service for every kind of person, whether it's managing things, whether it's organizing things, whether it's cooking, whether it's cleaning, whether it's decorating, whether it's accounting. We got services for anyone with any skill, literally. If you want to cut vegetables only, you can cut vegetables. You want to sing and dance, you can sing and dance. You can distribute books on the street, you can distribute books. You can talk to others. If you're good at giving classes, you can give classes. You can clean the temple room. You can just do unlimited amounts of things. If you're good in IT, we have an IT group to help with Krishna service in the technology field. We have finance groups. We have devotee care groups. If you like caring for other people, you can help taking care of other devotees. Whatever skills you have, generally can be engaged in Krishna service. Sometimes we may be not organized in that we have a group who's doing it together to facilitate you, but we can create that if you're the first person. So you're an artist. We have no artist group, as an example. But if you're an artist and you feel, I want to paint for Krishna, do something, we can get together and you can serve Krishna in that way. We have a drama group, Bhakti Theatre, we have those kinds of things. So there's so many things, whatever capabilities. We should try and engage all our skills and propensities in serving Krishna. That's how we'll see it in Krishna, we'll see it as related to Krishna. For example, like if you are making garlands for Krishna, let's assume that's your service, to make garlands. And if you are making garlands and you appreciate the flowers and you appreciate how well it looks on the Lord, every time you see flowers, you'll be thinking about Krishna's garlands. Now, if I'm not in that service, I may see a flower and think, oh, it smells nice and that it looks pretty. But someone who's involved in that garland service, every time they see flowers, they're thinking, wow, maybe we should get that and do this for Krishna, because they are doing that and they naturally think like that. They're not struggling to think, they naturally think like that. So it naturally creates that relationship with Krishna, with everything you see. So the more things we can engage in service with, then we'll see things connected to Krishna that way, especially where we got certain skills and propensities. It's an important thing that whatever skills and propensities we have, we engage in Krishna's service. And you're welcome to see me if you want to do some service, or Nashman, who's here. And I'm sure he's looking for devotees to assist him in the devotee service team. Also, if you want to engage others in service, you can also help there. So there's lots of opportunity.
Would you like to add anything, Prabhu? Yeah.
I think all teams probably appreciate. I don't know of any devotee engaged in any service who doesn't want others to come forward and help in some way. Obviously, it's a bit weird. Like if you really hate flowers and you go to the gardens team for service, it's going to be weird. But generally, whatever you're inclined towards, if there's an existing team, it's always nice to.
Okay.
I'm sure most teams will welcome anyone wanting to do service. And yes, like Ramvijay was mentioning, that one thing is whatever existing services the temple has to offer, to try and see how we align ourselves there. But the other aspect is seeing our general inclinations and propensities, what we're good at. And what we're good at might not be at all happening in the temple right now, but it could be in the future, like the arts or some sort of, like even someone wanting to start a farm or something at the temple, or just getting involved with cows, or who knows, anything, or someone might be a lawyer. I don't even know if we have a legal team.
We need a legal team also.
Because I know ISKCON globally just recently formed the kind of legal team. Right now, as it stands, ISKCON as a worldwide society does not have a constitution.
touch on a little bit about initiation and services. I know His Holiness Bhakti Chaitanya Swami said we can also ask the speaker to introduce that initiation topic. So if you could just speak a little bit just to, for the newcomers who may be keen on initiation.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So, initiation is a kind of natural progression in our spiritual life.
Mm-hmm.
Initiation is a step that you take where you formally surrender to a spiritual master who takes responsibility to deliver you back to the spiritual world, and you commit to following his instructions. That's the process of initiation.
Mm-hmm.
As the word says, it's a start, it's the beginning, it's initiation. And when someone becomes more serious in spiritual life and they feel they want to commit themselves formally, then they should take initiation. It's an important, according to our scriptures, it's a critical part of all our spiritual progress. So to take initiation, there's a process we follow as an organization where you would have to, follow certain steps. You have to do certain training, follow certain steps. But the most important thing to understand with initiation is that why you have to take initiation. You take initiation because you feel you are floundering in the material ocean and you need to be delivered. You feel that. You get to understand that, So initiation is not something, I'm 10 years in the movement, I should get initiated. No. It is not a graduation of any kind. Initiation means I'm suffering in this world, I don't know my way out, I need help. So it's like you're drowning in the ocean, you put your hand up for help and you're saying, please help, and someone gives you help. That's what initiation is. So it's a process of surrender. You're surrendering to someone to help, who's going to help you. So that's the first point. And then in order to take initiation formally, as an institution, because we are a worldwide institution, we have to have certain standards which Prabhupada implemented. We have a little process that you'll follow where you'll do certain training courses, you'll engage in some service, and there'll be some time period to make sure you are fixed in your choice and your decisions to take initiation for a year or so. You'll get interviewed, and if everything is okay, then you can get recommended for initiation. But you'll have to choose your spiritual master also, at some point, and then take initiation from him. So initiation is a special set of mercy, more mercy, where you reach out and someone pulls you up. So your own effort, you can't make it, so someone pulls you out of the water. Like that's what it is. It's that process. So that's what initiation is. Someone is helping you and connects you to the parampara, to the disciplic succession, Prabhupada up to Krishna. So that is we get literally connected to Krishna through the disciplic succession and through initiation, directly connected to Krishna. So it's a special mercy. It's additional mercy. We take all the mercy we can get. So that's an important part. Actually, without initiation, spiritual progress is difficult, extremely challenging. That's what the scriptures say. To make real progress, you should take initiation. Okay.
Thank you so much, Krishna. His Grace Ramvijay Prabhu ki Jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Prabhu. We appreciate it. We hope that you can join us again.
Yes.
Any announcements?